welcome back to the channel, and if you are new, a special welcome to you. Today we're going to look at subject-verb agreement, subject and verb agreement, and this is just a continuation lesson from the previous lesson we did on subject-verb agreement. But before we get into the lesson, I would like to say a special thanks to those people who have been supporting the channel. You have some people who I can't name names because I don't want to get into trouble, but they have some people who really support the channel, and I appreciate it. Those of you who are new, please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe when you view the videos. Alright, so without wasting any more time, let's get straight into the lesson. Today we're going to continue our look at subject and verb agreement. In our previous English lesson, we looked at that subject and verb agreement, and to just quickly recap, we mentioned in that lesson that every sentence must have a subject and a verb. And the other thing that we emphasize is that the subject and the verb must agree in number. In other words, if the subject is singular, then the verb must be singular. And if the subject is plural, the verb must be plural. And singular means one, plural means more than one. We also emphasize that verbs and nouns have a kind of opposite relationship. So a plural noun is a noun that has an S at the end. But in the case of verb, it's the opposite. So if you say the boys walk to school, boys is a noun, that's a subject in that sentence. The boys walk to school. And if you notice, boy with the S is going to agree with the verb walk, because as I said before, verbs and nouns act in an opposite way. So we say boys with the S meaning plural, but when it comes to the verb, it's the opposite. The verb without the S is the plural one. So we don't say the boys walks. The boys walk, but we would say the boy walks. All right, so that's just a quick recap of that. Now, so today we are going to look at some other rules, and let us look at what we have here. When the subject of a sentence is comprised of two or more nouns or pronouns connected by and, use a plural verb. So here we have an example sentence. The teacher and the students eats together. So what do you think we should have here as a correct verb? Now remember we said, let's go again. When the subject of a sentence is comprised of two or more nouns or pronouns connected by and, use the plural verb. So here we have and, so we have the teacher and we have the students. Both of them make up the subject, because the action here, eat or eats, is related to students and teacher. This part of the sentence is what is going to do the action, the teacher and the student. And up here it says, whenever we have that situation, the two nouns here, teacher, students, joined by and, we must use the plural verb. So in this case, the plural verb would be what? Eat. Because remember we say the plural verb is the one without the S. So the answer for that would be eat. So let's underline that. All right, so this is one rule that we need to understand. So whenever we have two nouns or two pronouns, or a noun and a pronoun, whatever, making up the sentence, and they are joined by and, the word and, then the verb that follows must be plural. All right, so please bear that in mind. Let's move on. Here we have another rule, and this one has to do with collective nouns. It says collective nouns are words that imply more than one but are considered singular. Army, you talk about an army of soldiers, right? A number of soldiers, but it's a group. So when you refer to a group, it is one group that you're talking about. So if you say an army of soldiers, you're talking about one group of soldiers, right? Here we have flock. If you say a flock of sheep, then it's one group. It's a number of sheep, but it's one group. So you're referring to the group. So that's why we call it collective. It's a group. Here we have choir. So if we talk about a choir of singers, because choir refers to people who sing. So a choir of singers. So it's a group of people that are singing. So therefore, it would be singular. So all of these would take singular verb because as I said, you're referring to a group. If you single out people, let's say for example, you say 2 soldiers from the army, then that would be plural because you're singling out people from the group. It's not a group you're referring to there, right? Is you're taking out 2 people from the group. So that would have to be a plural. So if you say 2 soldiers from the army, then are or is going on a trip, then you would say are, because it's 2 people you're referring to out of that group. But when you have it as a whole group, then it is singular because it's one. Right? Class, a class of students. So the class of students is doing their examination, right? Because class is a group, so therefore you use is in a sentence like that. But let's say you say 10 students from the class are going on a trip, then that would be are because you have a number attached to it there now that you are taking out of the group. But when you have class as a whole, then it would be singular. So let us look at this sentence. The choir are rehearsing for the concert. The choir are rehearsing for the concert. Which do you think is the correct one? Well, based on what we just discussed, you shouldn't have any difficulty finding that out. So therefore, it will be is, because you're referring to choir as a group. So the choir is rehearsing for the concert. You didn't put a number of people from the choir. You're referring to the choir as a group. So therefore, it is. All right, so let's move on. Here's another set of rules, and this one has to do with indefinite pronouns. I don't want to go into much details regarding indefinite pronouns because we are going to have lessons on pronouns, so we'll look at that. But for the time being, just bear in mind that these words that you see in red, they are what we call indefinite pronouns. They are singular, and therefore they are always followed by a singular verb. So let's read here. These indefinite pronouns are followed by singular verbs. And let's name them: each, either, neither, no one, everyone, everybody, nobody, someone, somebody, anyone. So whenever you see these used in a sentence, they are usually followed by a singular verb. And here we have an example sentence. Everybody, I just chose one out of the lot. Everybody knows him. So based on what I told you up here, then you have no difficulty figuring out which of these verbs to use. And remember, we say the singular verb is usually the one with the S. So we would say everybody knows him. So that's the correct verb to use there. So that's another rule that you need to know. So whenever you see these words in a sentence, you know that they are going to be followed by a singular verb. So when you are speaking or writing, you must always bear that in mind. So knows is the correct answer there. All right, so that's it. Let's move on to another one. Yes, let's look at another rule, and this one is about uncountable nouns. it says uncountable nouns take singular verbs. Uncountable nouns are nouns that can't be counted. So the name explains itself, right? A noun that you can't count. So here we have some examples. And we have water, we have furniture, we have information, we have sugar, we have advice. So these are nouns that you really can't count, like how you would count some animals, or you count some cars, things like those. These are different. You can't say you have one water or two water and stuff like those. So let's look at them. We have water, we have furniture, we have information, we have sugar, we have advice. And we have a number of them. You can look up those for yourself. All right. Now here we have a sentence. Example, the water is are deep. And based on what we have up here, it says uncountable nouns are nouns that always take singular verbs. Okay? So once you have an uncountable noun in a sentence, the verb that follows is going to be a singular verb. Just bear that in mind. So therefore, water is going to be followed by is, because the two verbs we have here, is and are, is the singular. So we'll say the water is deep. All right, so that's another rule that you must know. So let's move on to another one. Yes. Let's look at this final rule. It says when a phrase comes between the subject and the verb still agrees with the subject. Let's read it again. When a phrase comes between the subject and the verb still agrees with the subject. And here we have an example. The teacher as well as the students, and the phrase in this sentence here that comes between the subject and the verb is as well as the students. So that entire part there is a phrase. A phrase is like an incomplete sentence, right? So the verb is going to agree with teacher. How many teachers? One teacher, because there's no S on teacher, so that suggests that it's one teacher. So therefore, the verb is going to agree with the teacher, which is still the subject. So even though you have all these words coming in this entire phrase here, and you have students here, which is a noun, but that's not a part of the subject. That is a part of the phrase, and this will throw you off if you're not careful. Okay, because here you have students, so sometimes people are confused with these words which have phrases that come between the subject and the verb. So always bear in mind that no matter how long that phrase is, just don't lose sight of the subject. And in this case, the subject is the teacher, and it's one teacher. So therefore, you're going to have is. Okay, so let me just highlight that. Yeah, so don't be confused with all this long phrase that you have here. This is just to confuse you. Just bear in mind that the subject is the teacher. So you wouldn't say the teacher are. You say the teacher is. Okay? And you could have other examples, like for example, you could say the boy along with his sisters are going to the beach. The boy along with his sisters are going to the beach. Now the subject is the boy. So along with his sisters, don't be fooled by that. Okay? The subject is still the boy. So you will say the boy along with his sisters is going to the beach, because the boy is the subject and the subject is singular. So it will be. Alright, so those are just a few examples of some rules that you can use to guide you when you are making decisions as to whether the verb is singular or plural based on what the subject is. Alright, so bear those 5 rules in mind. That's all for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed that lesson. And if you do, please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to press that notification bell that when a lesson is uploaded, you'll be the first to be notified. So see you in the next lesson.